Hello everyone, Croeso pawb. Thank you very much for joining this webinar about our exciting new floating wetlands project. My name is Poppy. I'm the Community Engagement and Educations Officer at the North Wales Rivers Trust, and today I'm going to take you through some of the goals for the project as well as explaining the community opportunities that we have. I'm also joined by Laura Sanderson, CEO of the North Wales Rivers Trust, who is going to be taking you through some of the more scientific aspects to the project, as well as giving more of a detailed overview. Okay, so looking at the goals for the project, we are looking to design, permit and install a floating wetland to demonstrate the importance and absence of shoreline vegetation. We're going to research the impact on local zooplankton populations and quantify the scale at which water quality could be affected and improved. Quantify potential reductions in nutrients with the aim of achieving nutrient neutrality. We're also looking to engage the public with nature-based solutions for water quality, and we'll be exploring opportunities for an expanded installation based on the pilot study science. So, what is a floating wetland? A floating wetland is a floating ecosystem for more biodiversity and improved water quality. So, it's a natural and durable floating ecosystem which creates more habitat both above and below the water, and it also purifies the water. It is a simple solution to enhance biodiversity and treat water based on the power of nature. So we have chosen Anglesey Ynys Môn for this project because of its history with blue-green algae. So over the past few years, there have been incidents of dog fatalities from the high toxicity levels, particularly in Llyn Maelog, which will be one of the key areas that we're focusing on. And the blue-green algae has a harmful effect on wildlife, recreational users, and just the water quality in general. We've also chosen Ynys Môn because a lot of the land is used for agricultural purposes, and this is believed to be a contributing factor to the increase in blue-green algae. Thank you. I'll now pass you over to Laura Sanderson to take you through some more detail about the pilot studies.
Hi, thanks for joining us this evening, and thank you, Poppy. Throughout the year, as Poppy's already mentioned, we will be releasing more dates for webinars where you can ask specific questions to both the Principal Fisheries Officer and some of the science team, as well as the community team, and find out how you can get involved. So on the screen, you can see cyanobacteria, more commonly known as blue-green algae. Some blue-green algae species produce toxins, and when these cells die, they rupture and release toxins into the watercourse. Toxins produced include neurotoxins, which can affect the nervous system, and other toxins which can also affect liver function. We've already seen the devastating effects of cyanobacteria blue-green algae on Llyn Maelog, with recreational users losing their pets. Quite often, when you walk around a lake, cyanobacteria will not appear as it does on the screen. Quite often it's invisible to the naked eye. So only when it is in thick mats will you see it on the surface, but that doesn't mean that the water is not suffering from toxins due to algal breakdown. More commonly, you see these in the warmest months, which I'll talk about shortly as we go through. So it's not all the way through the year, but our most common times to see cyanobacteria across Ynys Môn lakes are during the warmest months of the year. And I'm going to talk you through eutrophication and why this happens. So what we're seeing in our waterways, rivers and lakes across North Wales is high nutrient load. So we have a lot of nutrient-rich runoff, and that's coming from our fertilisers, be that from agriculture or even in our own gardens. We're seeing nutrients wash off from CSOs, which I'll talk about shortly, and sewage works. And all of this entering the watercourse then feeds the algae, which creates thick blooms because they love consuming all of these lovely nutrients, and it forms thick mats. These thick mats block out any sunlight and kill off any other plant life in the water. And when they die and break down, specifically blue-green algae, they can often release toxins into the water. But not only that, bacteria then feed on that, on the broken down plants and algae, and they consume the oxygen in the water. This then makes the water anoxic, which means there's no oxygen left for any of the other wildlife, and that's when we see massive fish kills and loss of life to many aquatic species. So why is this a problem on Ynys Môn and North Wales in general? Most of the land in this area, as you can see from the map, is agricultural land, which means farmers are using nutrients, fertilizers to improve their soil health for crop coverage. If they're cattle farmers, they're using silage and slurry try to improve their soil health. This goes on the land. We're also seeing at key periods in the summer, more and more tourists descend. With more and more tourists, you've got pressures on the sewage works and you have pressures on septic tanks. In rural areas like Anglesey and Ynys Môn, you have a lot of septic tanks that historically have not been registered. Some of those septic tanks are not fit for purpose or they're not regularly maintained. If they're not maintained regularly, they end up leaching into the nearby land, which we're seeing becoming more and more of an issue in these rural areas. Why is that an issue for our rivers and our lakes? It's because with climate change, we're seeing changes in weather patterns. So during the summer, we're seeing warmer summers, which is warming the lakes and the rivers, exacerbating issues with algal blooms who love the sunlight to grow more and more. But we're also seeing warmer air. With warmer air becomes more intense bursts of rainfall. And that rainfall, when it hits the ground, washes in all of those nutrients. You'll see sewage works spilling. You'll see the nutrients from the septic tanks wash straight into the water course, as well as straight off the farmland. So this summer, to help us better understand the issues that we have during the warmest months of the year, we're going to be deploying sondes in 3 lakes across Anglesey. These sondes are going to continuously monitor, they're going to stay in the watercourse and continuously monitor levels and types of nutrients that we're seeing in the waterways and levels of cyanobacteria. This will help give us a better picture of what is going on in the lakes and how we can best calculate mitigation measures. So where will our pilot study be? We've decided to choose 3 Ynys Môn lakes. One of them will be a control lake where we will deploy sondes on their own with no other interventions. This will give us a good idea of the nutrients changes throughout the year. At the second site, we'll be deploying a floating wetland, which I'll talk about in a moment, and look at how that can mitigate some of the cyanobacteria and nutrients in the water. And at this third site, which we've confirmed as Llyn Maelog, that will not only have a floating wetland, but will also be working with farmers and landowners, campsites, tourism industry, Dŵr Cymru, looking at supporting interventions upstream of the catchment to see how many nutrients we can reduce before it hits the main lake. As a Rivers Trust, we're specifically interested in looking at nature-based solutions. How can we replicate ecosystems that have been lost over time across land, seas, and rivers that help balance the ecosystem and filter the water? So in this particular pilot study, we're looking at floating wetlands, which will be huge floating wetland mats that will be deployed into the lake system. We're going to be looking at the root system in these floating wetlands because they play an essential role, not only in filtering the water, but also looking at how many nutrients each root system and plant can take from the watercourse. This will then help us calculate for future and potential upscale of this project and what kind of wetland and what type of plants we would need to have maximum impact. We're also going to be looking at the biofilm that accumulates in that root system and how many bacteria and zooplankton start to form. Zooplankton, which you can see here in the bottom circle, love to eat cyanobacteria, which you can see in the second circle, as part of their food source. So we're going to be looking at what types of zooplankton form, which type of species, and also trying to calculate how much of an impact they can have on a lake or a river. So the science behind the study and what we're specifically looking at is how we can reduce nutrients in lakes and rivers, and we're going to be looking at nutrient neutrality. How we're going to do that is lots of different measures that you can get involved with as a community, but we're going to be looking at bioharvesting the plants. So how much nutrients, phosphorus can each plant uptake, what kind of species and what level. We're going to be looking at zooplankton numbers underneath the floating wetland mats and how they can have an impact and how many can accumulate per square metre. We're going to be looking at cell counting, the cyanobacteria levels in the warmest months, biofilm accumulation within that root system, and also the data that the in situ sondes give us throughout the warmest 3 months. Now, some of these scientific studies you can get involved with. At the end, Poppy will answer any of your questions in the chat, and she'll also give you the opportunity to sign up to help us in this project and get involved in some of the scientific monitoring.
Okay, so we're going to have a really community-centred approach to this project. So there's going to be loads of opportunities for members of the general public to get involved. And there's lots of different things. So hopefully there is something for everyone, no matter what your age, background, ability is. There should be something that you can get involved with. So the first thing is our Labrador scheme. Now, this is a wider scheme that is going to be incorporated into lots of different projects, and it's a citizen science scheme which will offer training for water quality testing and eDNA training as well. We're going to be conducting habitat surveys so that we can find out a little bit more about what is in each area for each pilot study. We'll be setting up a monitoring station, and we're also going to be hosting some different river and lake cleanups in the area, which is a great way for the community to get involved and see like an instant impact of their effort and hard work. We will also be installing smart river hubs, looking particularly at invertebrates as a water quality indicator. So hopefully there's lots there to get excited about. Okay, then finally is our STEAM educational programme. This has been really rewarding to be involved with, and it's already had a great response. So we've launched in 10 primary schools across Ynys Môn, and it is a 5-week programme for Key Stages 2 and 3. And the children will be hatching out Daphnia eggs in the classroom. They have to feed them, take care of them, and then they'll also be growing wetland plants. And then throughout this process, there'll also be worksheets and other sort of fun educational resources available to them so that they can get a nice, well-rounded understanding of the science behind the project. So the overall aim is to help pupils understand how wetlands can improve our lakes and rivers. So that is the end of this webinar. If you are interested in getting involved in any of the community opportunities, or you have any questions at all about the project in general, then you can contact us at the details you see on the screen here. Our email address is info@northwalesriverstrust.org. We're on social media at North Wales Rivers Trust, and you can also visit our website. So thank you very much, and I hope to see some of you out and about on site soon. Diolch yn fawr pawb.